For this week's Deposit Kingdom video, we are joined by Roto World and Legendary Upside's Kyle Dvorchak. I had him fill out a questionnaire with 5 different questions. What is his favorite player target? What is his favorite structure? What is his favorite stack? What is his favorite Galaxy Brain idea? And what is his favorite late round flyer? What I did not tell him is that after he filled that out, we were going to try to execute every single one of those preferences within a Ball Mania 5 draft as we try to chase 1.5 million with Kyle Dvorchak's perfect draft. This is the Deposit Kingdom. I'm Pete Overzet. Let's join Kyle and see if we can pull this off. I'm here with Kyle Dvorchak from NBC, Roto World, as well as Legendary Upside, and we are going to find out who are his favorite players to target, his favorite structures, his favorite stacks, favorite Gal Brain ideas, favorite late round flyers, and then we are going to hop in a Ball Mania 5 draft. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I hear you're cramming content because you've got some fun stuff ahead. I'm like a week behind you on let's churn out as much stuff as we can in the time capsule for 2 weeks, and I'm gonna take some time off after that.
How many Ball Mania drafts are you deep?
I don't even think I've ripped my first one yet. I've been trying to chase all of the small ones that not the like the $3, the $4 stuff.
Yeah. And
then on DraftKings, I think I'm saving any of my BBM bullets for probably like late August. Well, maybe you have to be early August because see how quickly it fills sometime in August.
Okay, yeah, and I do think I'm more like Achane in that I just feel like I'm not going to be able to get them in unless I'm pacing it. So I'm over 50 deep now. So this will be fun because you are battle tested in the smaller entry streets, which I would argue sometimes are more difficult rooms just because you have all of the sickos piling in those.
It's exclusively sickos. There's no one normal because normal people are not getting notifications from the Underdog Twitter account that are like, hey, the $3 whatever, the $3 Chihuahua opened up. You've got 10 minutes to enter. They don't enter in time. It's all sickos in anything that is like probably $5 to $8 and under.
It's crazy. So you've done a bunch of drafts. I've enjoyed listening to you on both the Roto World podcast as well as the Legendary Upside ranking shows. Let's get right into it. What is your favorite structure to employ in drafts this year?
Oh, it's Zero RB summer, baby. This is RotoViz has been building to this for years. Zero RB's had pretty back-to-back, maybe 3 in a row, but at least 2 in a row, very strong showings. And I think the way the market is moving is even though receivers are priced up, it is an even better time to draft Zero RB, in part because of how the rush to receiver happens so quickly.
Yeah, how do you think about that dynamic? Because it's something I've thought about recently where it used to be harder to pull off Zero RB because there wasn't as good of running backs available late, and yet it was being utilized far less frequently by the field. Now you can pull it off with some really strong running back selections, and yet even by default ADP, 3 to 4 drafters are funneled to Zero RB builds.
Yeah, I think it is, there's like this, I don't want to say misconception, right? Because you can build plus EV teams in a million different ways. Some ways are just really hard. I'm sure people have built plus EV 1 quarterback teams. I don't trust myself to build those kinds of teams. I'm sure they're out there. I don't think I can do them, but I do think people sort of misconstrue that, oh, running backs are cheaper now. We should be drafting more running backs early. I think that's sort of the pushback you see on the receiver price up. But in my opinion, and the way drafts have played out for years in a row now, is that the pricing up of the receivers is a market trending towards efficiency. You're not going, if you're going against the grain, you're just going against the market telling you, here's what has worked and here's what the data backs. So I don't want to swerve away too much from the market telling us receivers have been very successful and they're very important. I think that's just best ball evolving to what will in 5 to 10 years possibly be a near solved game. Like, this is just the natural evolution of we were playing the game probably relatively incorrectly in BBM 1.
Yeah, it's super hard. Like, if you care about things like elite tight end, if you care about getting enough wide receiver firepower, if you want to sprinkle in the occasional elite quarterback, it is so hard to grab more than a couple of running backs, through the first 7 or 8 rounds. Let's let that lead into your favorite player target. Who is the guy that just gives you those warm and fuzzies every time you click him?
He's the one running back I consistently break the structure for. It's Achane. Like, miss me with all the injury concern, touch concern, the complete FUD. Guy has 50 points in his range of outcomes. Just the weekly upside alone. You flip the cards in week 17 or in your pod in week 16 or week 15, and you see it's an Achane team, you're like, I could win it all.
For sure. Yeah. I remember seeing a post from Sacrilegious during the big board drafts, and someone said they got an Achane CMC, and he was like, God, I dream about getting that. And I'm like, you could have that every single draft you want these days. All right. What about your favorite stack quarterback with a pass catcher? Who is your favorite so far this year?
So far, I think the price you can get on Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews is kind of crazy for another. You're allowed to pitch season-long upside for Mark Andrews, who has like the second best tight end season ever, I believe, in terms of total yards. He's up there for some of the best tight end games ever as well. And Lamar Jackson, who has some of the best season-long finishes ever in the history of fantasy football in the NFL. And then, of course, that follows through to them having extreme single-week upside. So they're the best of both worlds, and they go relatively cheap.
I feel so insanely confident that if Mark Andrews didn't get hurt and progress through the season with the same frequency of spike weeks that he had at the beginning of the year, that he would be going in a similar range that he did last year, probably right around Laporta, maybe right in that mid-round 3 mix. I feel like we're getting an injury discount on Andrews, or do you feel that the market is properly baking in, hey, Zay Flowers might be the 1A now, and this isn't just the Mark Andrews show?
It would be insane to think a player missing a bunch of games last year and ruining the teams that drafted him did not result in people valuing said player differently in the following year. Now, is that the only thing that is affecting his price? Of course not. I think the bigger thing is just the receiver pricing. Is there are so many times you're like, oh, I need a receiver here. We'll see if Mark Andrews makes it back to me. Oh, we'll see if I can get him to fall a few spots. I can't get buried by the avalanche of receivers.
Yeah, and the more he's my most drafted tight end, Andrews, and I think about him. I was talking with Sean Siegel on Best Ball Breakfast today, and Sean was talking about how he defines an elite tight end, and it was largely on like these guys who can get it done even without touchdowns. And when I look at the landscape, and I love Trey McBride, I'm warming up to Dalton Kincaid. Those guys did it a little bit more on the reception merchant side. Mark Andrews to me is just like all of the things we want from the tight ends, like all packaged together. It's like, okay, he's not quite as old as Kelsey, but he's done it. He's on a really good offense. Everything kind of like lines up for him. If there's just a little touchdown regression, if he stays healthy, if their defense is just a little bit worse, it just feels like there's so many paths to him smashing his ADP. We all have our little gal brain ideas. I've heard some people refer to this as us getting bored in the middle of Jude right now. But what is your favorite galaxy brain best ball idea that's maybe slightly more unconventional?
I didn't think when you asked me this, I had a good one. This is the one that took me the longest. I was like, actually, here's something I do that's really weird that I doubt a ton of people are doing. This year feels like a great year, just in a few circumstances, to stack backfields. The first one to me that's most obvious that comes to mind is the Pittsburgh backfield. We just had Arthur Smith saying like, yeah, if we run 1,000 plays, we want like 500 or so to be rush attempts. Just, casual 500 carries. Like, this team is going to run so much, they're probably going to be good at it, and at least one of them is extremely talented. Najee was also fine last year. He did well in a lot of the metrics, and they're both so cheap. Najee is the type of player who I mentioned with Achane, literally last year. 4th round Najee sounds like hell. I'd rather not do that. He can be my second running back on a team stacked at receiver. He's been punching in 280 touch, 1,200 scrimmage yard seasons his entire career. Yeah, I'll take that. And then I can also make a bet on talent within the same backfield and Jaylen Warren. I will take that, and I will take them together, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. It's one of those things I don't necessarily go out of my way to do it, but when it lines up clean and I'm getting that one of the two at a nice little ADP discount, it feels really good. I just finished one of my hound dog drafts, so one of the random underdog smaller ones, and I did the Zach Moss, Chase Brown, and then I got Jaleel McLaughlin really cheap, like 20 picks past ADP, and I was like, I'll take Estime as my late round guy there too, and be like, let's just bet against Javonte and let's lock that up. And I'm looking at those two, and I'm like, these are two offenses that I think are going to funnel a ton of points to the running back position, and it's cheap. They're all, triple digit picks.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are another one. These guys are just so cheap. We saw last year, it was a high value backfield. You wouldn't know that by having drafted Tony Pollard. But in the whole, Tony Pollard put up a decent amount of fantasy points. We just paid for a lot of fantasy points. You have to pay nothing to get this backfield. And Rico Dowdle was pretty good last year. Zeke should see a lot of touches, kind of like the Pittsburgh backfield. I know it's a high value situation. One of them, I think, is kind of talented, Enrico, not as talented as Warren, but he was good in the efficiency metrics last year. And then Zeke, I know he's going to get a lot of touches, and you pay nothing to acquire these touches.
Yeah, and it's funny thinking we were talking about how zero RB has aged so well, both from an ADP market perspective, but also just the way the NFL is going, and there's far less bell cows. I feel like the hand-cucking of the backfields is actually trending with how the NFL is playing out as well. Running backs are getting cheaper. Teams are just assembling a couple of them. I'll draft Chase Brown cheap. We'll get Zach Moss off the free agent heap, and then they're cheap in drafts as well. And so that's kind of it makes intuitive sense to me that like we would almost approach our game in a similar way that the NFL is, and the market's reflecting that. Final question here from the questionnaire. Who is your favorite late round flyer?
I have to give answers that I am doing in my own drafts. I don't want to say like, oh, I like this one because he's a trendy pick. CH really seems like he's going to be the number 2 back for Patrick Mahomes. He's been a pretty good pass catcher for the past 2 years too. He's like 1.2-ish yards per route run, which is like top 20-ish. And the competition for him is just absolutely nothing. So I'm not proud of it, but I do think it's a good pick.
I'm going to ask you a little bit more about CH in a second, but 2 things here. I hopped us in a Best Ball Mania draft, and one thing I didn't tell you before I asked you to fill out the questionnaire was secretly my mission was to see how many of these things on your questionnaire can we accomplish in a single draft. And really the only ones that don't line up is zero RB and Achane. So I feel like we kind of have to make the choice, or we could play the Achane like a really push like anchor RB setup where it is, you know, in the spiritual succession of zero RB. But how do you feel about trying to attack all of our favorite things from your questionnaire in this draft?
Yeah, we'll have to bend the rules because I wanted to be specific too. Everyone's like, hero or zero RB. CD Lamb here, layup pick. Everyone's like, oh, hero or zero. I'm like, I get that they're both good strategies, but like one of them is a good bit different than the other. I will go true hero though with Achane. I'm totally fine with him being one running back, and we're pushing it till Najee, Brooks, Warren, those types of guys. So if we give us a little credit and say hero RB, we can probably accomplish everything else, I think.
And I will say so we have the 1-3, we do take CD Lamb. I think that this side of the board is like the perfect side to try to pull off the Lamar Andrews. I mean,
I was going to say that too.
Spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the exact sweet spot. I think picking on the turn 2 gives you that sort of heads up on here's what your opponents do. Here's how you can like, I don't say work them, but try and like gauge what they're going to do. There's only 2 people you have to work with. So gives us at least a decent chance to accomplish that.
What do you think here? Like, we can for sure have Achane if we take him at 22. Do you think we can push him to 27 in this room?
I'm going to say we push him because if we push him and we get quote sniped, I don't care, we get sniped, we get to do I'll do the full zero RB thing. So I think in terms of accomplishing our goals, we may lose Achane, but we'll lose that battle, but we'll win the war. So I say we try and push him.
I agree. This will be fun to see, because basically what's going to happen is like, if we were in a different draft spot, like we might just say, all right, let's sacrifice a little value. Let's take Lamar or Andrews in the 3rd and lock it up in the 4th, just to do our fun thing. We're now at the spot where we're either going to get it at a nice ADP value, or we're just going to barely lose out on like 3 of these targets. Let's see here. Do you have a favorite wide receiver? I do have the leg up rankings in here, which I know you work on. By rank, we got Neighbors. By ADP, you're looking at Evans or Neighbors. Is Neighbors the guy for you?
Yeah, I'd go Neighbors. I wouldn't, if you wanted to go Evans, I wouldn't rush up too hard against it. I would personally take Neighbors though.
Yeah, let's do Neighbors here. I guess the only little slight correlation push to Evans is the fact that they play CeeDee Lamb in week 16, but I don't know how deep in the correlation weeds we want to get this early.
Yeah, this early, I'm not too concerned with it. I do think like I'm sure there are some drafters who ultimately go way too heavy on the week 17 stuff. And
especially if it's costing value and people are doing it a lot. Achane comes back, top of our ranks, top of ADP. This is how a plan comes together, Kyle.
I mean, this is a good looking team, for being honest. It's pretty good looking.
I talked about it in my most recent video on the Deposit Kingdom channel. If you guys missed that, I did kind of 10 takeaways after 50 BBM drafts. And I mentioned that I do think people force correlation early too much. And I'm like through 5 or 6. Obviously, I'm thinking about teammate correlation. I want Andrews and Lamar Jackson. I want these stacks, but like bring back correlation. I'm really not thinking about until I'm getting to like 9 or 10. And then almost every decision, I want to break ties in favor of that correlation. But it's like that teammate correlation is so much more valuable. And to your point, like going through the sims last year for DFS really helped illuminate it. There would be so many like Dalton Schultz and Nico Collins with no CJ Stroud, Devin Singletary with Tank Dell, all of these teammate pairings, double teammate pairings in the bringbacks would not be forced that much.
Even without a quarterback, just stacking up a team heavily even is probably something the field underrates. And I do think some portion of the field is overrating the bring back stuff for one single week, where we just don't see that as an extreme priority in a lot of different simulations I've looked at. Not to say that they never do it, but it's not something where I'm like, oh, the sims say you should do this 100% of the time. It seems pretty random when they say you should do it. So I try and follow through. I do see, though, a lot of the team stacking minus the quarterback stuff. And that makes, I think, even more sense to a degree in best ball because your roster's so big.
Yeah, and I love it. Like my favorite teams are when I have like 4 to 5 double stacks or 4 to 5 teammate stacks. And again, I'm not going to have 4 to 5 quarterbacks on this team. Sorry, Gritty. But I think those are where you're still getting every single benefit of correlation and you're not sacrificing anything at the quarterback position either. Looking at our questionnaire, we got our favorite player target. This is going to be the moment of truth in the 4-5 turn here, how to pull off this Lamar Jackson Andrews. Already getting a little queasy because Trey McBride and Dalton Kincaid both went ahead of ADP. What do you, if they are both there, what is your preferred way to try to play it? Andrews first or Lamar first?
I think I'd probably, I believe Lamar is meaningfully higher in ADP. So that's what I think that's just the most likely way to push it, even though maybe there is a sort of correlation within a draft thing where you take Andrews, Zay Flowers way on the other side of the board, so we don't have to worry about him. And you take Andrews and that scratches Lamar off for a lot of people. But I think especially because so much of his value comes from running, a lot of people, especially not to disparage the 1 and 2 hole, no Badgers, are gonna be like, oh, he's Lamar, he runs a lot. And that's also fine. I'm just saying, I think they're probably even a little more likely to take him uncorrelated, but even a person who's drafted 5,000 drafts will also tell you like, yep, I'll take Devontae Walker in the last round and I'll be happy with it because Lamar could run for 105 and 2. So I still think I just go with ADP here, but I could see an argument for trying to flip it the other way.
This drafter right before us in the 4 hole is the one I'm worried about pulling the trigger on Andrews. They started Chase, Waddle, Metcalf. Oh, there goes Lamar. Okay.
That's fine.
The dream is dead. The dream is dead. Amari does go there. So we don't have to force anything here. We're looking at Kirk, ETN, Pacheco, Andrews. What do you think the way to play this is?
Kirk, nearly the highest in ADP, just behind ETN, highest in our rankings, and we're trying to do the full 0 RB thing, so that's kind of an easy one for me.
Man, I was not expecting this drafter to do the Lamar. I was like, man, the Zay guy didn't do that. I was worried this guy would go Andrews here, but I thought we were for sure going to get Lamar.
Yeah, I thought we had a shot, but let me see. Well, to be fair, I guess we go Lamar. The guy behind us still takes Patrick Mahomes. We probably do get it through if he makes it one more pick. I mean, we could still go Andrews.
I have I mean, I make this click like 95% of the time in this spot.
Yep, do it.
Yeah, because, sometimes lately I have been, because I have so much Mark Andrews, I've been thinking like, okay, I'd like to get a little more Pacheco here. So maybe ETN falls to that spot, get a little bit of him. But then I look at the board and it's like Jacobs is a faller. Keenan isn't necessarily separating for me here. Cook is falling. I'm just like, all right, I'm clicking Andrews again. All right, we're about to pick at 6'10 here. Looking at ADP, it's Kittle, Addison, Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas. We could go with the Jag stuff. Anything else jump out to you?
Yeah, I think Brian Thomas is an easy one. I don't love Keon Coleman and Addison. I mean, we could try and take Addison and push Brian Thomas. I'll let you make that call, but I'd either go Thomas and see what comes to us, or Addison and try and push Thomas, but it's kind of that 2v2 either way.
Yeah, I've actually been clicking a ton of Addison. He's one of my most drafted in this range. I have like 20%. I've been actually trying to get up on Brian Thomas a little bit more. And considering we have Kirk here, I feel like just setting up that double stack there makes a lot of sense. This is so funny too, because this room just couldn't be any more different than some of my streamed rooms this week, which were just insane wide receiver avalanches. And it's like, oh, guys are falling past ADP. We are on the clock. Keon Coleman, Kamara, Montgomery. Actually, let me sort by rank. Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Deontay Johnson. What do you think here?
Oh, I guess we could go Deontay. I'd be fine with Keon as well. I want to push the 0 RB thing though. Or hero.
Yeah.
So, we broke it. So push the hero RB thing. With Achane on this roster, I'm perfectly fine with Deontay. With Achane on this roster, we've got one every 5 weeks 50-pointer, and there are a lot. I like Dave Montgomery's the best of the projected touches in this range guy, but there are a lot of those guys, like Najee Harris being one of them. So we push it, I think, and I like that we did.
Yeah, and I was, Keon Coleman, it was funny because he was fantasy's darling, just from like a media perspective. Such a likable dude, rocketed up boards. Now you're starting to see a little FUD as far as him maybe not quite being ready. And I'm seeing lots of people calling him one of the worst picks on the board right now. I wonder if he's going to continue to be a faller. So I don't mind kind of taking the foot off the gas of, click. I got my first Keon Coleman shares this past week, or it was like last best ball breakfast, because he was finally falling past ADP. And I was like, all right. And then I was like, wait, he's probably going to keep falling. So I want to kind of let his ADP settle a bit.
I know there are a few players like that where Nick Chubb is falling. Everyone who's thought about this for more than a minute is oh, Nick Chubb's not going to play a big chunk of the season. Probably he's going way too high. And then I see him fall 8 picks past ADP. I'm like, oh, he's past ADP. Maybe I should start drafting him. And then I think about it, I'm like, if this is where he's going today, nothing good is going to happen for him the next 3 weeks. It is going to continue to be more and more people realize where things are going for him. And especially then once training camp starts, he's almost 99% going to be going on the pup for training camp, also probably to start the season. As much as I want to buy the dip right now, trying to gauge how far into the dip we are. For a player like him, it's falling pretty far. I think it goes a lot farther. And for a player I'm not excited to draft, and Keon Coleman I wasn't really excited to draft at that price either. I don't want to just take small ADP values, especially when I think I know the direction it's going. I want to really push it and wait and see how cheap can I get a guy that at his current price I don't like.
We could start thinking a little bit about kind of what this quarterback plan could look like if we continue to rip wide receivers. It obviously eliminates kind of some backdoor stacks, but we have some good flexibility. We obviously have Trevor Lawrence as a premium target with Kirk and Thomas. We have Dak available, or no, sorry, Dak went. Dak went a couple picks ago, so that's off the table. If you want to take the Daniel Jones dip late, I feel like I've done that too much. There's Bryce Young, so maybe not quite as many quarterback options as I initially thought.
Yeah, I think we should try and lock ourselves into Trevor Lawrence. I'm fine not getting him on this team, but knowing that we need a quarterback, I think he's kind of a premium pick. We could also break the seal on running back here. On second running back. I'm going to push around the turn. I say we go actually, do Raheem Mostert here, because we talked about doing the two running back thing.
I was going to ask you
we have to.
about, yes.
And I've done it before.
Yeah, because I think, you know what? I have definitely done Achane and Wright multiple times. I do not think I have done Achane and Mostert, that's a fun one.
I've done Achane and Wright more than I've done Achane and Mostert. It just makes more sense price-wise, but in your mind's eye, imagine the Dolphins scoring a lot of points and the running backs being really efficient. If you can think of such a thing, we're drafting like that's the case. We could also, if we're looking for a quarterback here, we go Jaden Daniels and just figure out a Luke McCaffrey or whatever later. Two quarterbacks, assuming buys don't screw it up. I don't think they do. Daniels and then Trevor later, hopefully.
Yeah, so we pick at 118, which is right on the dot for Lawrence. So that should work.
Let's do that. Let's go Daniels here.
Do Daniels. That gives us a little. And if we were to get sniped on Trevor Lawrence, it's not as dire of a situation, because if we got sniped on him and didn't have a quarterback and we had already used 5 wide receiver spots, it could get a little dicey.
Yeah, exactly. And what are we looking at for quarterback next if we hadn't taken Daniels? And let's say we get sniped on Trevor, we kind of get into a pretty grimy, Brock, we have no correlation with. We have running back correlation, but it's not super heavy. Herbert, we missed out on his. Yeah, so I actually think optionality-wise, this made a lot of sense. And it's, of course, what I was thinking about when I suggested it.
The other, I guess the thing to look at, this is nice. The Evan Ingram drafter has already done Allen and Stroud. So we should be okay there. And then we have Brian Thomas and Kirk, and then the ETN drafter is behind us. So this should, you knock on wood, but we should be able to get Trevor Lawrence at ADP. Let's see what the guy in front of us does here. I'm looking at the board. If there was a huge ADP faller, I might be, let's push Lawrence around. I'm not seeing an opportunity cost to taking him. Do you see anything?
Nope, I would do the same, because I think we've got a really good chance at pushing him around. The ETN guy, I think he's on our side of the board, could take him. who's really valuing it that much? But there's nothing to me that screams like I want to get this pick in. So.
And is this for you pretty much for sure a 2-quarterback build, Jaden Daniels and Trevor Lawrence?
Yep, yeah, without a doubt.
So we got a 2-2-5-1, Jaden Daniels, Trevor Lawrence, Devon Achane, and Mostert. Just 2 Dolphins. That's all you need. CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, Deontay Johnson at wide receiver, Mark Andrews at tight end. What are you seeing here? We're about to pick at 11-3.
I mean, there's a little bit of there's actually a few different spots of week 16 and week 17 correlation with Dallas Goedert. I'm not really sure I care enough. Like, we've got Mark Andrews locked in. I probably want to go another receiver here, and especially because I don't really want any of these running backs, to being honest. So,
do you want are you on the Jerry Jeudy has dog or doesn't have dog, because he does play against our 2 Miami Dolphins in week 7?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, do that then. Yeah, I definitely don't think he has dog in him, but it's fine.
You're not on the sacrilegious scale of I will never draft him again, though. Clearly,
I'm probably closer to Zach on this guy doesn't have dog, but also like, I don't know. He had some good yards per route run 2 years ago, and that team sucks. So sure, we can draft him, I guess.
Yeah. He definitely, he does feel like such a capitulation pick where it's like, I have correlation, or it's like, shit, man, I need a quarterback. Yeah, Deshaun's going to be there at pick 175. So I guess I'll take Jerry Jeudy right now. Yeah, looking at some, correlation stuff. Rico, with CeeDee Lamb, a little teammate pairing there. Tyler Algier would give us an oppo to Jaden Daniels in week 17. Jalen Wright, do you have a key?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
cut kick.
I don't think so.
I'm sure there's like, and I know. Do you think will be attempted this year on Best Ball Mania? Some sick fuck's gonna try it
for sure. Yeah. How many? Like 500,000 or 600,000 teams?
Yeah.
Like, sure. It's like less than 1%. It's how many teams do you think it is? It's probably. Is it less than 100?
I was gonna say like 25 to 30. Maybe I'm lowballing it.
I was gonna say 50. We're in the same order of magnitude pretty easily. I'm not gonna.
What do you think about this Eckler fall on a Jaden?
I was gonna say I'm not gonna say it because this is the perfect way. We've already talked about it to get Eckler. I dread taking Austin Eckler. If we can get him far beyond ADP as a clear stack, I hammer this. I would take this every single time, and this is the only way I would take it.
Don't auto draft this by ADP.
I know. They're doing
auto draft this by ADP. Whew.
Nice. Yes. This is the perfect way to take him. I think he's probably washed. His numbers rushing were dreadful last year. His receiving numbers fell. His rushing numbers have fallen like year over year. He is a pass catching running back with a quarterback on our team. We need running backs, and he's a massive ADP value. Like, I was sweating. I haven't sweat Austin Eckler making it to me at any point this year, and I may never do it again. That's the right way to sweat it.
I was going to say that is literally, you couldn't draw up a better team or a better situation for Austin Eckler. Just honestly a perfect thing there at 142. And I still really like our running back options here. I mean, you mentioned Dowdle. I'm kind of hoping he falls here because there seems like a little tier break to me. He goes.
We got our one, we used our one time already.
What do you think? Algier is kind of the other guy that probably makes some sense here, or if you got another favorite, what do you think?
No, I mean, I'd go Algier. We could also go Musgrave and wrap up tight end, but I think given our state of running back, I'd rather go Algier and push that second tight end. Like, that second tight end can be a real jabroni, and maybe it doesn't matter. We still need more firepower running back, I think. So.
Yeah, I agree, because it is this weird thing with the same bye week. Even though, like, if let's just say this was CMC instead of Achane, you'd be like CMC, Mostert, Eckler, Algier, like you are cooking. But as you kind of described with the Achane thesis, it is a little bit different of a play. We are approaching this with not a ton of draft capital, and you can even look at, I have the draft capital buckets. This is part of the Draft Caddy, and based off of Leone's manifesto stuff, we're still in the bottom draft capital bucket as far as how much we've spent at running back. We're at 172 with the low being 127 to 209. So like, even with 4 running backs and 1 early, we're still on the low end.
Yeah, that was, I think, I draft a lot of Luke Musgrave. He looks like a kind of clear second-year breakout for a tight end. I think in that spot, even as much as I like him, you got to keep pushing running back. And week 17, imagine a lot of early Tyler Algier rushing touchdowns, which I believe then comes back to a lot of dump offs to Austin Eckler. I think that's the Week 17 matchup for those two teams.
I am kind of sweating one of these two running backs coming to us, Ray Davis or Bucky Irving, because then it does fall off there. Oh, we're gonna get one of these guys here. Ray Davis does have a lot of similar buys to us, but he's a nice ADP faller here. Bucky Irving, of course, gets our Dallas and Carolina correlations. I like both of those guys. Are you seeing anything on the board? They're both available.
I'm fine just taking the ADP value with Ray Davis. I also like Bucky Irving. We do have Tyrone Tracy as a little Malik Neighbors correlation. I don't know what the bye week situation is. 11, perfect. So I'd still take Ray Davis first, take the ADP value, and let the board tell us what we do next. Tracy's pretty far in terms of ADP, though. Am I wrong about that?
Tracy 190. So we pick at the next time is 190. So that could work out well right at ADP.
We could try and push that. We don't need running back 2 receiver 1 correlation for the Giants. I'd like it. I'm actually, I like it. I'm probably not going to prioritize it by 20 some odd picks or whatever. So Irving here. Yeah.
And then just looking at, so Luke McCaffrey has an ADP of 182. That falls more in a dead range. We would need him to fall 8 picks past ADP. Ben Sinnott goes. I think if we want Luke McCaffrey, we probably have to take him here, but like Luke versus Bucky is kind of tough.
I don't mind going Luke here because how many picks are we going to have left, assuming we'll get our second tight end? It doesn't matter who it is. I'm fine going McCaffrey here, push one more running back, and then because we're not getting to like 7 running backs on the team, I don't think so.
No. What are your?
I'm Luke here if you want to move him up.
I'm with you. Yeah, let's do Luke. We can be done.
We need to save one more running back spot for CH too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So that works out well. We'll reach just slightly here for Luke, but when we get now this double stack with Jaden Daniels, okay, let's see here. Tyrone Tracy went. We might need to grab CH here. We can probably push him to the 17.
I haven't looked at anything else. If you want a tight end here, we could do a Miami tight end, the Miami tight end, or just take CH. The difference between getting CH now and later does not matter in the slightest. It's a $1 auction value no matter what. It's a $1 auction value starting at pick like 130 or something. So.
Yep, and the 2 teams behind us both have 2 tight ends. There's a Kittle, Cade Otton team and a Bowers, Ben Sinnott team. So
one of those should probably take a 3rd tight end, but I don't care if we get. I truly could, unless there's a bye week thing. I don't think there is. Conklin, Jonnu, Chig. Doesn't matter to me. Do we have any correlations there? We don't have any with Buffalo. Oh, Jonnu's our Miami Cleveland one. And Chig is also. Do you have a preference between Jonnu and Chig?
And Conklin also is 17 Davis, 15 Jacksonville. I think I like, just like purely in a vacuum, I like Jonnu the most.
Do it.
I'm just checking our buys. We're good. Mark Andrews 14. Conklin has like 5 bye weeks for us on 12, whereas Jonnu's just the Miami guys. What do you think? Do you have a favorite of these 3?
Not really. I think maybe slightly Conklin, because last year he's just the guy who got targeted the most out of these guys. Like Jonnu's teams, Jonnu actually earned some targets too. So go with Jonnu, and he's the clear correlation priority, or I guess he is, because like we want Miami offense goes Burr, and with Chig the only correlation is 1 single week. Chig's not that good. It's fine.
I think like the running back names a little bit more. I mean, there's nothing really deep on the Washington Jacksonville. I'm sorry, I'm not a Parker Washington guy. You could talk me into Tank Bigsby on this team though with our big Jags bet. Keaton Mitchell, I think also if we want to do Keaton Mitchell and Andrews, I'm also fine dipping into like the Estime or Shipley stuff.
Yeah, I think Tank is probably like the mathematically correct answer of like, man, if Trevor or if ETN goes down, more pass attempts, but also a ton of rush attempts for Tank, obviously, because he's a backup running back. There's probably like a more meaningfully high correlation there than anywhere else, even if like, buddy, Tank does not look good at football. I got to be honest.
No.
Last year, I believe he had 4 targets. 2 of them hit his hands and were intercepted passes. He was the most negatively correlated running back with a quarterback, probably without a doubt, in the NFL last year. it's probably still the right pick if he makes it.
Yeah, I agree. I do, man. I love that double whammy you talked about of if ETN gets hurt, more passing volume, and he becomes the running back. That's a pretty nice selling point. I don't see anyone else here that can make a better case for this team than Tank.
Yeah, the receivers, I'd be fine. I think if I have this exact same team 6 times in a row, I'm almost 50-50 mixing receiver and running back here, but especially because the running back is so highly correlated and we're still in need of running back, I think the answer is Tank. Maybe I don't go 50-50. I go more like 4 out of 6 times I'm going Tank.
All right, I am going to recap the questionnaire, and then I'm going to have Kyle recap this team for us. Kyle's favorite structure, 0 RB. We did devote very few resources to the running back. We're in that bucket 5 here. Obviously have Achane as our anchor, Mostert, and then a bunch of flyers after pick 142. Favorite player target, Achane. We got him there past ADP in the 3rd round. Favorite stack was Lamar and Andrews. We could not get the Lamar part, but Andrews does fall to us just 1 pick past ADP. We lock him up. Favorite Galaxy Brain idea. This is taking 2 running backs from the same team. We picked, one of the best teams to try to pull this off from, Achane and Raheem Mostert. Neither Kyle and I have done the Achane Mostert much, so that feels fun. And then favorite late round flyer. He was so much our favorite flyer that we decided to grab him in the 16th instead of the 18th in CEH. Kyle, outside of these missions, which I know I was trying not to put us in too much of a corner, but trying to draft the perfect Kyle Dvorchak team, how do you think we did?
Oh, we nailed it. There's nothing we can do about the Lamar thing in that spot. We try and we could take him, 15 picks ahead of AP or whatever. Yeah. Can't get that, but we still get his tight end, who could be the tight end 1 overall. I do think the Miami backfield thing's really cheeky. In your mind's eye, imagine a really efficient running game in which both running backs score a lot of points because they break off a lot of big plays. When my mind tries to recall that, I think of a Miami backfield that we saw last year. You can see it with this team, where there are some teams where I'm like, I don't think even past ADP by a little bit, you really want to be doing that at all. This is the opposite of that team for the most part. So it's probably my 4th ranked team stack running back team. I think Dallas, maybe Denver, definitely Pittsburgh. After that, I don't know, take the fast dudes who score a lot of points, and we saw them do it together. We saw it happen together. I like that a lot, actually, honestly. I might have to start doing that on my own just a little bit. CH, best worst pick or worst best pick. And 0 RB, I'm sure the purists, like you said, they're going to say we didn't accomplish it, but I feel accomplished personally, so it's fine.
Yeah. And I'm glad you pushed the Mostert thing, because I was looking at our running back room and just kind of the way things broke, where we were doing quarterbacks in those early 10th, 11th rounds. It would have been hard to get 2 players from the same team other than Jalen Wright. I think that would have been our only other out to pull that off. I just want to check where Wright went in this draft.
He went right after we took at some point. We went right after Algier. And we did talk about him there, so we could have gotten it like that. Or we could have done real grimy one like a Jaleel Audric Estime. But this feels we're talking about Galaxy Brain stuff. Jaleel Estime isn't Galaxy Brain. It's unique, sure. I'm sure the Jaleel drafter is not often also adding Estime. But you asked, the question was specifically, what's your Gal Brain strat?
Exactly.
This is Gal Brain. Like we said, we think there are very, very few teams employing this type of strategy in terms of these 2 backs specifically. So I think that was to the letter, or to the spirit of the question. I think we nailed that.
And the thing that I like, because generally, and I think I made a video on this last year, because people often ask about the 2 running backs from the same team. And I normally said, I either want them to play entirely different positions where they're basically not even the same type of backup, or to both just be very cheap. And then it's who cares? Probably
the ideal setup for our rather small but very fast Achane is to not see all the work. I'm not trying to injury prognosticate, but I'm fine if he doesn't get 350 touches. I don't want him to, probably, because he's probably at his most efficient at a number below that. And that leaves a ton of meat on the bone for relatively cheap, having scored 21 touchdowns last year, Raheem Mostert.
I love this team, Kyle. I think it broke really well. We'll call it, Kyle Dvorchak's perfect team adjacent, I think is what we could call this.
This is a fun team.
And I do like that idea too of if you are doing zero RB in the majority of drafts or taking that one detour for Achane early a lot, then trying to mash those up as much as possible into getting the benefits of both of those. Because I do really think that is the way to think about this stuff. When people get bogged down with the semantics of these structural strategies, I said the same thing about the elite tight end. The way I define elite tight end is basically how we did this draft. Am I comfortable only taking 2 and the second one being very late? If the answer to that is yes, then they're elite tight end. I'm comfortable doing that with Pitts, not so much Evan Ingram. That's where my divide is. If you're comfortable doing that with Jake Ferguson and grabbing Jonnu as your 2, by all means, knock yourself out. To me, I don't feel comfortable with that. So to me, it's all about how are you actually allocating draft capital. That determines whether players are elite or what a structural strategy is. Kyle Dvorchak from Roto-World and Legendary Upside drafted a perfect team based on some of his things he filled out in the questionnaire. Kyle, this was awesome. I mentioned a few places people can regularly check you out, including Twitter. Anything else I'm forgetting here?
No, Roto-World, check out the Roto-World podcast. We chop it about best ball a lot. If you like the Legendary Upside stuff, check that out. We have Crane on a lot because guy wins a few $1 million and doesn't hang out with us anymore, but he does come back on pretty often. So yeah, there you go.
Awesome stuff. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely subscribe. I've been doing weekly videos, either kind of in-depth strategy pieces or drafts like this. In the previous week, I did my 10 insights after 50 drafts, kind of hit on a few of those that we talked about here. And let me know in the comments. I've been messing with different structures for some of these videos. We did some of the wheel spinning, reverse engineering a draft, doing one with a guest. I'd like to do some more with guests. Let me know what you guys like, and we will keep more of that coming. Thank you, as always, for watching the Deposit Kingdom channel. For Kyle, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next time.